Welcome to SVG-TV News for Wednesday, March 18th. I'm Jimmy Prince with the details. Newspaper columnist Kenneth King has issued a public apology to the SVG Teachers Union for statements he made in a newspaper article published on February 20th this year. In his letter of apology, King says he regrets writing and publishing the article, not having investigated the matter. He realizes that the Teachers Union did not call for a compensation package of $20 million. Upon publication of the article, President of the Teachers Union, Oswald Robinson, called on King to retract his statements and to issue a public apology to the union and all teachers, noting that they had already put the matter in the hands of their lawyers. In his apology, King states that it was not his intention to harbor any ill feelings towards the Teachers Union, noting that he did not realize what he wrote was offensive and inaccurate. He said that he was merely responding to a news release on February 13, 2015, published in the newspaper under the caption, SVG Teachers Union submits compensation proposal to the Prime Minister. King is asking for the forgiveness of the Teachers Union and said the experience has been a humbling one for him. As St. Vincent and the Grenadines continues to celebrate National Heroes and Heritage Month, the life and times of former Chief Minister E.T. Joshua was yesterday celebrated at a remembrance ceremony in Kingstown. Speaking on behalf of the Solidarity Incorporated and the National Workers Movement, General Secretary Noel Jackson says it is important that Joshua be remembered for the contribution he made in the development and upliftment of the working people of this country. Jackson further explains that having spent 36 years of his life in the trade union movement in this country, he simply had to build on the foundation that was established by the late E.T. Joshua.
Joshua established in this country trade unionism, modern trade unionism. Today, we sit with the employer and we improve on the collective agreements that we have. For example, when I'm going into negotiations and I submit proposals, the heading of that proposal is revised collective agreement. Proposal for a revised or for the revision of the collective agreement, which means it has been there and we are improving on it. The foundation of that collective agreement was established by Ebenezer Theodore Joshua, because in that agreement you have holiday with pay, vacation leave. Joshua began to negotiate wages for the working people of this country for the first time. The employees should pay what they feel like.
Jackson describes Joshua as not only a champion of the working class of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but also a champion against colonialism. He says what is also noteworthy about Joshua is that after 28 years as a parliamentary rep, chief minister, and as a trade unionist for many years, Joshua died leaving almost nothing behind.
So when we have to reflect on the life and times of Ebenezer Joshua, we must remember that after all these years, spending in Parliament, election after election, government after government, Joshua ended up as a very poor man. Why? Because his focus was not on riches. His focus was not on taking state property. His focus was not on taking cutback from anybody. His focus was on seeking to help the poor. I can go further. Joshua was offered an OBE because they felt that he did enough to get that. He said, I don't want that. I'm not no obedient boy of the empire. I'm a fighter on behalf of the working people. Joshua went to his grave without that actually.
Meanwhile, the gravesite and the tomb of this country's former chief minister has been enhanced, now covered with white terrazzo and white marble chips. The project was funded and carried out by the Solidarity Incorporated, and the representative of the organization, Noel Jackson, says with Joshua being considered as a potential national hero, it was only right that the location where his remains are buried is properly kept.
And so today we have a much improved grave in fact, it is something that person should look forward to come to see, and we ought to promote it so that people can come and see where the remains of Ebenezer Joshua is. It would need maintenance, because what we have done there is not ordinary concrete. Ordinary concrete, you can leave it can grow moss, and it's suspected. What we have done there is to cap the tomb with terrazzo, white terrazzo with pure marble chips. It is going to need some maintenance. Of course, I can ask for the continuation of maintenance for the grave. For how long, I don't know.
Meanwhile, Jackson says it is necessary for the people of this country to change the way they regard important things in this country.
It is a struggle during a time as Minister of Culture was to have that done, for us to recognize our heritage, for us to uphold them. And even out of office, she's still doing that. And we need to do something as citizens of this country to ensure that we can preserve our heritage, protect what we have. As simple as it may be, it is part of us.
In related news, Lafleur Johnson, daughter of the late Ebenezer Theodore Joshua, in her remarks to the gathering, says March 14th was not only symbolic as the National Heroes Day, but also marked 24 years since the death of her father. Johnson said her dad dedicated his life to the social and economic well-being of the workers and the poor people of this country.
I just hasten to say that the refurbishment of this memorial to the life and the work of the veteran politician Ebenezer Theodore Joshua and his wife Ivy Inez Joshua shows the consciousness of the SVG Solidarity Car Park in recognizing the mammoth contribution of this chief minister and stalwart labor movement. So on behalf of the family, I wish to thank the SVG Solidarity Car Park for this gesture, which is greatly appreciated.
In other news, a Cuban delegation comprising 2 specialists will arrive here tomorrow to introduce a drug called Herbapro P that is expected to reduce the incidence of amputations that are directly related to diabetes. The delegation includes Dr. Ebreto Caranzana Peinedo, angiologist and vascular surgeon, and Virginia Greenidge Smith, sales manager of Herbapro SA. While in the state, the group is scheduled to make courtesy calls on Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, Minister of Health, Wellness and the Environment, Clayton Bergen, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Senator Camilo Gonsalves. The group will also introduce the drug to officials from the Ministry of Health and make site visits to the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital and other health institutions. Herbapro P is the brand name of a drug developed by scientists at the Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology in Cuba as a cure for diabetic foot ulcer. It has been found to promote granulation and healing in advanced diabetic foot ulcers. Some police news now. Ceylon Searles, a member of the local constabulary, has been arrested and charged by his colleagues for the offense of unlawful and malicious wounding. The officer is said to have committed the offense against Nicklon King, a resident of South Rivers, during an altercation between both men on February 15th this year. King is said to have sustained a single gunshot wound to his right leg, which resulted in his hospitalization. The officer was this morning escorted to the Kingston Magistrates Court before acting Senior Magistrate Carla James. He pleaded not guilty to the charge. Court prosecutor Elgin Richards had no objection to his bail. He, however, requested a 2-month adjournment, stating that the victim, Nicklon King, was still a patient at the hospital. The bail was allowed in the sum of $5,000 with one surety. The matter was adjourned and transferred to the Conroy Magistrates Court for trial on May 21st, 2015. Annette Pierre of Fair Hall is the second lucky winner in the Lime SVGBC 35th Anniversary Trivia Quiz. The legal clerk for Saunders and Huggins, who collected her prize of a 4G tablet earlier today, says she did not think she would actually win. However, she continued texting to the questions being asked. Pierre says it was her sister who informed her that she had won after hearing her phone numbers being read out.
I was sitting on the porch and my sister called me and told me I won. I said, win what? She said, win the tablet from the SVG Broadcasting Corporation. I was so excited, I started screaming till I won. the tablet. I'm going to use it. This is mine. I'm not giving it to my daughter. She asked me for it already. I'm not giving it to you, Moisha. It's mine.
And what are some of the shows that you'll be looking at?
First of all, Tyler Perry, Have and the Have-Nots. I'm looking at that.
And how do you feel about SVG Broadcasting celebrating their anniversary?
Good, I feel good to know that we have a local station here that's doing a good job and giving back to the community, and I'm thankful to them for this tablet. Thank you, SVG Broadcasting Corporation. I'm happy that Lime is happy to give back to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and they are my network because I have a Lime phone. I'm not going to trade it for nothing. So thank you, Lime, and thank you, SVG Broadcasting Corporation.
Meanwhile, Sales and Marketing Officer at SVGBC, Keisha Belingi, congratulated the Fair Hall residents and encouraged other persons to be part of the Lime SVGBC Anniversary Trivia.
I just want to congratulate the winners thus far and to encourage others to continue texting. You never know, you could be the lucky winner next week. I just want to remind persons of our discounts that we have currently for SVG-TV. You can qualify for a 35% discount for bookings made in the month of March, and for Hits 1037 you get an 18% discount for any bookings whatsoever made in the month of March.
Celebrations serve as a significant achievement, particularly for those involved in the fishing industry, fishers and their families, auxiliary workers and other stakeholders. The division has planned 40 days of activities in commemoration of the 40 years of celebrations. Fishermen's Day activities will commence on April 16th and culminate on Whit Monday, May 25th. Throughout the 40 days celebrations, a number of activities will be held, including the primary schools poster competitions, a Marine Fisherman's Day, science exhibition among secondary schools, the Tots in Marine Life, radio quizzes, and fish nights. Winsbot Harry has been selected as chairman for the third consecutive year. Fisherman's Day will be held at the Kalakwa Fisheries Center. Parents and the teachers of students at the Chomaka Secondary School came together earlier today for a parenting workshop aimed at regaining their children and positioning them on the right path. Principal of the school, Esther Providence Burke, says the aim of the workshop is to get all the students within the school on the right track with the support of their parents. She added that as educators, they are tasked with the responsibility of equipping students with enough knowledge to keep them firmly grounded even after they have exited the school system.
We are all stakeholders in this business of education. And education is not only to learn to read and write, but it is a holistic something. That is where we train our children to know what to do when they are in certain situations, know how to respond to adults and to their peers, know how to deal with conflicts and so on. So we are not only teaching them to learn to read and write, but we want to bring them up as well-rounded citizens. So through this workshop, we hope that you will leave here better equipped, or let me use another word, with a better zeal to go back and reclaim your child from where they are slipping.
Featured speaker at the event, Pastor George Frederick, says that the parenting workshop will allow for a closer collaboration between parents and the teachers in the upbringing of their children.
The institution of learning and the people who are engaged in that institution, I want to commend them. It will not be a job that is high on the career profile, but I want you teachers to know you are touching the lives of the nation. Everybody passes through your hands. The future prime ministers that are sitting on the balcony out yonder, and the future doctors and the future lawyers, and the future writers of the books that I'm going to read when I'm sitting in a rocking chair. I'm probably doing a little slower. All right? So I'm speaking this morning to one and all. Those of you who are parents, you have the distinct honor of helping to mold their lives. So what we're doing, us parents are tag teaming with the teachers. I understand? One hand can't clap. So when parents and teachers merge our giftings together, we can impact these lives for good.
Pastor Frederick says that one of the main reasons why the older generation is disconnected from the youth is due to the fact that they expect the children to never make any mistake, while they themselves are not proper role models. Concerned about the materialistic operations of churches today, Bishop Orville Beckford is calling for pastors and their congregations to be more focused on Christ. The Jamaican bishop, who now resides in the United States, has just released a book about the churches of the Bible entitled The 7 Churches of Asia Minor. In an interview with SVG-TV News, Bishop Beckford says the publication clarifies the characteristics of the 7 churches and their locations and how Jesus Christ introduced himself to them in different ways. Dr. Beckford said churches need to take stock of how they function, since many, he says, are being viewed as money-oriented.
Is since when that the sound of money becomes louder than the name of Christ in the church, and that's what's happening now, because most of these guys are going more for what they get from it as opposed to what they contribute to the life of people. So that's my concern, and we had a press release in the United States not too long ago, and it says that a New York pastor's attempt to mend a broken church. But it's to try to call back the church to a relationship with Christ, because I think we have lost intimacy with Christ, and we are driven more by things and what we expect or what we want and desire, the material things, and I think we have lost relationships. So intimacy with Christ is not as important as it was and should be. And I see that in the Laodicean church, and that is scary.
Bishop Beckford, who pastored in the Bible area in the 90s, says his book will help Christians determine where they stand in the body of Christ and if their church should be more effective for the kingdom of God.
To find out where does your church fall? What are the things to look for? And I think this book will help you to do an analysis of where does your church fall. And if it falls within any of these, what is Christ expecting of the church? What should be my reaction? What should be my adjustment? And if this church is not falling in line with what Christ expects, should I be really there? Should I be really there if I want to have a relationship with Christ? If I want to be found worthy or accepted, should I be staying where I am if it falls within these categories that he says there is a judgment meted out because you are doing this and you're not making adjustment? So I need to assess my church and me to see where I am.
Males in St. Vincent and the Grenadines are invited to attend the second men's conference, which will be held here tomorrow. The event, being held in collaboration with Harvest Bible Chapel and Project Men 2020, will kick off at the French's House from 6 p.m. tomorrow and will conclude over the weekend. Coordinator and the president of Project Men 2020, Conroy Huggins, says that this year they are hoping to cover a wide range of issues that affect men in this country. He said the aim of the conference is to help uplift men while giving them worthwhile knowledge in the hopes of improving their lives and aiding them in adding value to the Vincentian society.
And Project Men 2020 is not so much focused on men in the church. We are focusing on men who are on church, men who do not know Christ, because we want to reach them. We want to reach them, disciple them, equipping them for kingdom. And the men who are in the church, we need to also build them up. We recognize from last year that the statistics are alarming. In the Caribbean, we have over 65 to 70% of fatherlessness in our region. And in St. Vincent, it is no different, where men are absent in the homes, and as a result, women are taking on a responsibility and a role that they were not designed to take on. So
Tomorrow's opening will be in the form of a leaders' business seminar at French's House to be conducted by President of Transform Men in the U.S., Dr. Thomas Sotson. A school bus which will be used to transport students from the Fancy community will be handed over tomorrow at a ceremony in Fancy. The Mustique Charitable Trust made a donation of some $100,000 towards the purchase of the Nissan bus, which will be run by the Ministry of Education to transport the students to and from the school. According to the Mustique Charitable Trust, the funds came from its affiliates in the UK. The purchase of the school bus came in response to the fatal rock gutter tragedy on January 12th, which took the life of 7 students from the Fancy community. The handing over ceremony tomorrow is expected to begin at 1:30 p.m. and we'll hear addresses from Prime Minister Dr. Raul Gonzalez, Area Rep Montgomery Daniel, a representative of the Mustique Charitable Trust, among others. Well, a number of local songwriters and producers are this week participating in a 5-day songwriting camp. The Island Network Master Room Songwriting Camp, which is the brainchild of producer and songwriter Mark Cyrus, seeks to develop the art form in this country. Speaking at the opening ceremony, Cyrus says the initiative is a way of improving the quality of music here.
We are trying to improve the product of Vinci music through collaborative efforts. And for the first time ever, we have a camp in St. Vincent where some of the main studios are participating. We've teamed up these producers with myself and some of the young, very talented youths coming up in the game of soca in St. Vincent for a week of songwriting. Now, it's not to confuse songwriting camps with the songwriting workshop. We're actually doing work here, where we record songs from zero to the end each day. And the idea is to have 20 songs by the time the week is finished. It's 5.
Some of the participants shared their thoughts with us on the initiative.
In this industry where we let go competition, we let go division, we let go camp, and we collaborate between each other. You know, we can all still maintain our competitiveness, our various brands, but at the same time work together as an industry to make a greater product for Vincentians to enjoy during the carnival season.
Well, I just want to say I'm grateful to God for bringing everybody here under the same roof, under the same vibe, the same common purpose and goal that we're going to try and achieve this week. I'm happy to, share my experience and help nurture the song, the brand, the culture of St. Vincent soca music, which we all share. And I'm eager and anxious to get to work with you great producers and songwriters, and let's just help, get the sound of the soca music in St. Vincent to a pristine level.
So it's not so much for me, Luther, to get the experience from the colonel, but also to give my writing experience, to the younger artists who are here, because we are always willing to help, and there must be continuity in the business. So as much as we are here, and at the top of the game, there are young ones who come in line as well.
And this setting is one that is very conducive towards creativity, and I expect a lot of positive products coming out. Like, we're not only writing for St. Vincent, as we mentioned earlier, we're looking for that export product beyond the shores of St. Vincent, and definitely I think this week's supposed to put forward a product that is beyond the shores of St. Vincent.